One very common reason why there is not a lot of South Asian representation in the leadership positions, especially for women, is because women don't opt in for leadership roles. They are literally afraid of rising to leadership positions. And I don't blame them. The problem is that in their heart, deep in their core, they do want to become leaders. They want to be seen as leaders. They want to make an impact. They want to have an authority, but they just don't do it. And there are a lot of reasons for that. We are going to dive in today in those reasons, and we will talk about how to address them so that you can realize that leadership is accessible to everyone, even South Asian men. A lot of them, they want to get to the leadership positions, but for a lot of reasons, they are not able to get there as well. And we will cover those reasons as well. The most important thing is if you have it in you, if you have all the wherewithal, then there's no reason why you should not become leaders, especially if that's what your heart wants. I'm Dr. Mrinalini Garg. For those who do not know me, I am an executive and career advancement coach. I work with South Asian professionals to help elevate them to leadership, to higher leadership levels, and help them thrive in those roles. I do this by helping them to make to speak up. I make it really easy for them to learn how to speak up without feeling like they're bragging, and helping them establish an executive presence. So let's dive um, into the reasons why you might be afraid of stepping into leadership roles. So the very first thing is, lack of information. And this is very interesting because my experience, and thank goodness, I had an eclectic journey, career journey, and I got exposed to the boardrooms, to the C-level executives, to how these people actually make decisions. I got to hang out with these leaders and had one-on-one conversations with them to really understand what leadership is all about. And if I didn't have those experiences, I probably won't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't have become an executive coach. I wouldn't have become a leadership coach. So, I started as a physician, then I switched over to hospital management. As an administrative resident, I hung out with the CEO. I would go on, rounding with them. I would sit in the C-suite meetings, in the boardrooms. Then I started working as a process improvement and leadership coach, and I was in all the rooms, right from the front line to the C-suite, working with people from different departments, and that was just amazing to see how people or how managers look at their roles and how they can break out of that manager and employee mindset and get into that leadership mindset. It was just amazing. And then as a business professor, of course, teaching in the executive MBA program, in the MBOE program, it was just everything, like I needed to know about leadership. It was just in front of me. And because I know that leadership is very, very accessible to anyone who is ambitious and who is willing to do what it takes to get there. But when you don't have this information, that's when you put leaders on a pedestal. You feel like, oh, it's the CEO or the CIO or the CTO or CMO, whatever it is. You just look up to them. And there's nothing wrong in looking up to them, but you literally put them on the pedestal. So respect is one thing, and worshiping and putting somebody on the pedestal is, a it's a different story. And that's not how you should be looking at leadership. You need to know that leaders are also human beings. It's just there are some skills that they have developed over time that sets them apart, and they show up as leaders. But leadership is accessible to everybody. I actually invite you to visit the LinkedIn pages of some C-level executives and start looking at where they started their journey. Some of them were delivering milk, some of them were delivering newspaper at people's houses. That's how they started. Some majored in music and became CFOs. Some do not, some have MBAs and they have become C-suite leaders. Majority of them do not have an MBA and they are in the C-suite. So you do not necessarily need an MBA to get in the C-suite. So I invite you to visit these LinkedIn pages and look at people's journey. They are human beings just like you and me. They are not special people. They were not born with special skills. Leadership skills, communication skills are called skills because they can be learned. If if they were something that couldn't be learned, they would have been called gifts, leadership gifts or communication gifts. But they are called skills because they can be learned. So the one thing that you need to understand is that just because you put people, the leaders, on the pedestal, and you trust the hierarchy, and thanks to the upbringing of South Asians, we respect hierarchy a lot. Like when I was in school, the whole classroom would stand up when a professor entered or a teacher entered. Like we have been trained to respect hierarchy. But we have to keep in mind that these are all human beings. These are all human beings on all these hierarchical levels. So that lack of information, what it takes to become a leader, is missing. Or what does a leader do when they do become a leader? That information is missing. And really, if you think about it, they do exactly what you're doing. You are solving problems at an operational level, and they are solving problems at strategic levels. So they are still troubleshooting, they are still problem solving, but they are doing more at a 30,000, 50,000 feet level. And I am going to challenge you because you are probably solving problems at a much higher level than what you're paid for. You are probably taking more responsibilities than your peers and solving bigger problems. There are some skills that you need to develop, which I'm going to go over. If you have those, then there's nothing that can stop you from spearheading in your career, taking charge of your career, and becoming the leaders that you deeply believe somewhere in the core that you deserve to be that leader. So, lack of information is the most important reason. And because of that lack of information, we fantasize. Oh, leaders' work must be so hard. So is yours. It's just different challenges. So the next thing is self doubt. Again, this is actually, you know, conventionally everybody thinks it's just women who have self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Honestly, I know a lot of men as well who have imposter syndrome, and those who deny are lying. Many times for men, the self-doubt appears more like the self-doubt, the insecurity comes out as aggression. They will hide their insecurities and pretend that everything is fine and they know more, and it's just delirious. They try really hard to show how amazing they are, but somewhere inside they feel that lack within themselves. With women they implode, with men they explode. What I mean by imploding is that women have these fears in their mind and they keep processing and they keep overthinking and over analyzing, and they become anxious, and that impacts their sleep, that impacts their self esteem, because they don't express their fears, because they have never been taught to express their fears. They have been made fun of, and it is true for many men as well. But let me ask you this: have you done anything in your life despite a lot of self doubt and you've been successful? If you have done one thing, you can do leadership. When you have the tools and strategies and you develop the skills that you need, you can easily become a leader, and not just a leader, but a great leader. Now, the reason for self doubt, it's tons of research. It goes back to your childhood, how you were brought up, what messages you heard growing up from your family members, from your friends, from your relatives, from the society, from your teachers. The messages that you have received has formed your existence as an adult. So you're influenced by how you were brought up, especially if there has been any kind of abuse, trauma, then the amount of self doubt is just huge, and that makes you feel that you in no way you can reach that next level. But again, if you address the root cause of the self doubt, you can easily let go of your inhibitions, of your shyness, and take charge of your career and become the leader that you are in your core. When clients come to me, that's the first thing that we do. The very first thing actually we do is we do some direction setting, goal setting. What is it that they want for themselves? Then the very next thing we do is address their limiting beliefs. Where are they coming from? How is it holding them back? Because if you have that goal, it means in your mind, you believe that you deserve that goal. So there is confidence within you. So if there's confidence, what is holding you back? It means that you're also doubting yourself. So we eliminate the root causes of the self doubt, we eliminate the limiting beliefs so that now they can freely dream about the career that they want for themselves. And eventually, we help them build that muscle, that confidence to become that leader. Number three, here's another thing: misinformation about leadership. Now, the biggest myth about leadership is that leaders work hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Great leaders know how to manage their time. They know what their priorities are, and they are not working hours and hours and hours. At the beginning of the career, everyone works harder. But the thing is that because South Asians especially have this tendency to please others, so they don't say no, and they keep on taking more and more and more work. They overcommit, they overestimate themselves, and they take on more because they feel like, oh, I don't want to hurt my boss's feeling by saying no. They are also afraid of saying no because they want to be seen as team leaders, and they fear that if they say no, they will not be considered as team leaders, and their chances of becoming a leader or getting that next promotion will go away. But that's not true. So, what happens is because of this habit of saying yes, being afraid to say no, not drawing boundaries, these professionals take on more, and then they keep working, you know, 10, 12, 13 hours, sometimes 14, 15 hours a day. And they believe that, well, if this is how hard I have to work at this level, if I get to that next level, I'll be working even harder. So I don't want that. But that's misinformation. You also see some of your bosses, right? They are sending messages on when they're on vacation or on the weekend. But just because they do it does not mean that every leader does that. In fact, great leaders are mindful about taking the time, taking that break so that when they come back on Monday, they are recharged and they're able to give more. So, this is a myth that as a leader, you have to work harder and longer hours. Now, one thing that I will point out is that it's a different story because, when you are living your life, when you are in the position that you want, then you feel excited to do more. And that's a completely different story. If you want to put in more time because you're excited about it, that's great. You feel shackled, you feel restricted when you are putting in more hours because you have taken too much work or because you don't know how to say no. That's a different story. That is toxic, that is tiring, that is exhausting, that will burn you out. But if you're doing out of joy, that's a completely different story. And when you get to leadership positions, you are always filled with new ideas and you want to try new things, and you have the freedom to do that. So know that just because you are a leader in a higher position does not mean that you will lose work life balance. In fact, you become better at it because as a leader, then you assert, hey, I do need to take this break because I have to go for swimming. If you look at a CEO schedule, you will find that it's during the day, all these things are inbuilt in their calendar. Okay, so the next thing is cultural or familiar constraints. Now, I know a lot of, women for sure, most women, they are raised with a lot of constraints. And, as I've started working with men also, and not just because of working with them now, but I have seen growing up, even men have constraints. The expectations that's put on them, they are the bread earner. The weight of the burden of finances is put on men. Even they are abused. I know so many tragic stories about boys getting beat up, stripped, locked in the bathroom for misbehaviors. And it's just sad, and that leads to self doubt. And for women, it's different. Women were never brought up to make decisions. In fact, they had to just listen to everybody else's decisions. What school they are going to go to, what field they are going to choose. And I'm not talking about everybody, I'm not generalizing, but most of the times that's the situation. When they're getting married, they have no say in that. The biggest decision of their life, who they're going to spend the rest of their life with, they have no say in that. So if you are brought up disempowered, not having that ability, I mean, you have the ability to make decisions, but nobody encouraged you to make decisions or give your opinions. In fact, you were shut up. If you try to raise your voice, you're asked to, lower your voice, be quiet, listen to that uncle, because whether he has knowledge about technology or not, and this woman has masters in uh, software engineering, she'll still have to listen to that uncle who has no knowledge. Why? Culture. You you will be disrespectful if you say an opposite opinion, share an idea that does not align with that uncle. So women have been raised to be less. Some men have been raised to be less as well. And they find it very challenging. These people find it very challenging, even though they have the expertise, they have the qualifications, they have the experience, but they don't dare to go for leadership positions, even though they have that potential in them. So when we work with our clients, we truly try to understand where they are coming from. What was their background? What stories they have heard growing up? And we help them, break from those stories and find who they truly are and what they are capable of. We help them shut off the noise that they have heard growing up of others who were bringing them down. And it's just so liberating. It's just so liberating. Then the next thing is afraid of speaking up. Again, culturally, boys and girls, more girls, they have been asked to lower their voice. If they have a different opinion, they have been scolded, they have been beaten, they have been made fun of. And if this happens over years, you start losing your voice. You don't feel confident about yourself. You're always looking for validation from others. And as a leader, you can't be doing that. As a leader, you have to make decisions, even if they are unpopular. You have to trust your gut. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust in that vision. But because of the conditioning, cultural and societal conditioning, women especially find it hard to speak their truth. With men, as I mentioned earlier, they have insecurities, but they pretend to be very strong, to be very powerful, that they know everything, that they are in control. But in reality, even men are afraid of speaking up, a lot of them. And then fear of networking. A leader has to network. But again, men and women, South Asian men and women feel that this is just out of their comfort zone. And it is out of your comfort zone for sure. However, again, it is a skill that can be developed. Men are a little better at this because, again, how they are raised, they have more freedom, right? They can hang out with whoever they want to hang out with. They can, be outside for, much later in the night. For girls, there are restrictions. Who can they speak with? There's that fear in their mind. Oh my God, right? What are they going to do? I should be afraid of this. Are they asking these questions to me because they have some hideous, motive? Women have been conditioned to worry, to be anxious about their interactions with others because safety has been a concern for a lot of South Asian women growing up. So it does not come naturally for them to network. And in addition, if you are putting people on the pedestal, then they seem out of reach, they seem inaccessible. But again, networking is also a skill, it's not a gift. So if it's a skill, it can be learned. And we teach our clients how to network with top leaders so that they're not relying on one person, their boss, to get ahead in their careers. So my message for each one of you is that if your heart is set upon becoming a leader, but fear is holding you back, you can, once you address that fear, become a leader. It's much easier than you think. It truly is. Like I mentioned, these 6 aspects hold you back: lack of information, self doubt, misinformation, cultural and familiar constraints, that fear of speaking up, afraid of networking. These are the things that hold you back, but you can change this because it can be easily learned. And I say easily with practice. When you have the right strategies, when you have addressed your self doubt, when you have raised your self esteem, and you own up your worth, this can be done. We do this day in and day out with our clients, both men and women. So it is possible. You can do it. If you, and I say leadership is not for everyone, but if your heart is wanting to become that leader, you know that you deserve to be at that level. Because if you didn't know that, you wouldn't be wanting to get there. You see yourself, how you work, how you take on more responsibilities, higher responsibilities, and solve difficult problems. You know that you belong up there. You can get there. If you need my help in becoming effective leaders, getting into leadership roles, or thriving in leadership roles, reach out to me. Schedule a free call with me, one on one call. Go to www.unshackledcareerwoman.com/call and we'll get on a call. Find a time that works for you. We'll get on the call. We'll look at what your goals are. We'll figure out what is holding you back, and we'll come up with a game plan for you. And we will help you get there. Until next time.